Welcome to the Starting Over podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos. This is where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of HeroClix. Part of me sort of says, "Hey guys, sorry, just launching this next show immediately after putting out the previous show." But there was something that was spoiled, and that was the Batman utility belt. Cha-ching! Greatness. Okay, so what that means is that we're going to talk about that, but before we talk about that, we're going to briefly talk about some slight meta changes on top of what I previously talked about on the last few shows. First off, after talking to several world champions, it is pretty much determined that Catwoman will probably be meta. Not just meta, but most likely going to be a big pain in a lot of people's sides for a good while. And when we start getting into the Batman utility belt, you're definitely going to see why. Oh yeah, you're really going to see why. Not only that, Iron Man, while Iron Man is a good piece at 225, I believe, or 224, something around like that, his biggest problem is that the rest of the opposing team can take shots on him. And it's through consensus. Several people have come to the conclusion that while Iron Man can be strong and a very useful figure in the meta, it probably won't dominate or be as common maybe 2 to 3 sets down the line as Catwoman. Okay. All right. Lex Luthor has a warped ruling that was communicated to me when I asked if you have the gauntlet or a resource dial or a relic on your team when you construct your team. Unfortunately, you are unable to bring Kryptonite into play using Lex Luthor, which is sort of suck. But again, it does stop certain abuse. Definitely when it comes to Fixer. And when's the last time someone's thought about Fixer? All right. Now, with that being said, what I want you to do is I want you to head over to a certain website called AC Realms. And once you're there, look for a thread called the Utility Belt Dial Coded. Yeah, it's sort of tough. And I'm just going to go and read. You know what? Here's what I'm going to tell you to do. You're on the interwebs right now because you're on the YouTubes. Pause, go to the thread, read the thread. Well, actually, read the first part of the thread, then come back to me. Okay? So just pause. All right, you're back. Thank you for coming back. I know your browser could have crashed, and multiple other bad things could have happened on the way. Thank you for surviving the adventure that is life to come and listen back to my show. All right, so let's get on to it. First off is the cost. You're talking about 8 to 14 points for a very, very low cost figure. Okay, low cost resource dial, which I pretty much said what would have to happen for the utility belt to compete against the gauntlet. Okay. The next thing is the whole design of it is, hey, you do a power action. Let me rephrase that. You do a non-free action. And you have to spin the dial, which is good to an extent. Because that means that once you attack, you can't just, cushion in on those good stat manipulation slots. So you just can't camp on those +2s. So that is nice. You can also camp on those +1s. Okay. Now, when we start looking at you almost pay for the whole thing, and now you can negate team abilities. That, to me, is the why you play it. Because the gauntlet doesn't give you that. It doesn't give you that at all. Now, there's some team abilities, in all honesty, that this utility belt won't do anything against because you only get to target one figure. Let's give you an example. Hydra, PD, Shield. Well, let me rephrase that. Shield if there's only like 1 or 2 shield agents, but really shield. Uh, it won't, it doesn't do any good. If you have a whole bunch of Hydra and you negate Hydra off of one of guys or PD off of one guy, it's nothing. Where it really comes in is like, oh, your League of Assassins is now gone. That sucks. Your your JSA, your Defenders now gone. Your Mystics now gone. Your Ultimates now gone. Your Thunderbolts now gone. You're starting to see the trend here. But if you go against something like Justice League Dark and you have 5 figures with Justice League Dark TA, it doesn't really change much. So you're talking about unequal effect based on certain team abilities. If the team ability is like, hey, you're next to blah, 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 and you get bonus blah, 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 then yeah, it can be annoying if you have a few of them, but if you have a whole bunch, it's not going to affect a lot of things. Where it gets really problematic is, let's say you have a JSA chain, and you need to kill the 2 figures on the end, and you use the Batman utility belt to pretty much negate the team ability of the guy in the center of the chain. So now everyone on the other end of the chain has lower defense values. So that's where it gets really, 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 really interesting and creative in how you're going to use that. Okay. Having Indomitable, I hate to say it, is sort of pissing me off because you get it for cheap. So pretty much for 10 points you get Indomitable, and for the, let's see, is it the full 14 or let me see here. Where's my point values? Okay, so 14. So it starts at 8. So yeah. So you add on 5 objects. If you have 5 objects, okay, you you end up with the ability to negate team ability. Sorry, and so where it becomes frustrating is you can do like yes, a fully loaded one gives you a benefit, but for Indomitable to be that cheap, for team negation to be that cheap, really makes me question how the point formula is working. Because you're pretty much saying, if I have a figure that is, let's say, 4 clicks deep, and I have a figure that's, let's just say I put the Gauntlet on Master Mode. I mean, not Gauntlet on Master Mode. Well, let's not use the Gauntlet. Because no, the Gauntlet needs to be on Master Mode. Let's say I give the utility belt to Galactus. Yeah, I give the utility belt to Galactus because he's already power cosmic enough. Okay. Now that I've given the utility belt to Galactus, now Galactus can negate my team abilities, or I give the Gauntlet to some deep brick that doesn't have Indomitable. Now they have Indomitable. It's just too much. It is too much craziness for you to do that I just find frustrating. But anyway, let's sort of go into some other deep things that are there. The having the plus damage. Plus all stats being +1 and +2 being very frequent in the dial tells me one thing. Even if you go off of a let's say you go off of a certain power, or you go off of a stat mod, you're most likely going to land on another stat mod real soon. Okay, and when the dial tells you to stop on a special power, then yeah, you pretty much are going to have a stat mod. Okay, so let's look at it. You start off with number 1, prep time. Give an assigned character a double power action and turn the utility belt to any click that does not have a special power. So you can turn it automatically to a +2. Okay. Do not otherwise turn the dial at the end of your turn. Now, if you're not greedy, you can stay on +1 and roll out. You have Indomitable. If you played the whole 14 points, you have Indomitable +1 stats, and pretty much you can negate team abilities. You've gotten your money. You've gotten your money. There is no reason for you to do a double power action. Stay there, don't be greedy, and take what you got. All right. Let's be honest. There is no logical reason outside of greed, or you need more superpowers, or you really want to use the stuff on the utility belt. There's no reason for you to go past click 1. They give you little to no incentive. You are the freaking Batman. Now, let's go back to some things I said about Catwoman before. Why is Catwoman all of a sudden this big pain in the buttocks? Okay, let's elaborate real quick. She has super senses. Okay, when she has super senses, if she goes on the dial, there's a chance for her to get Outwit or Perplex. She already has Close Combat Expert, so she doesn't need that. Okay, and she could get Flurry. She already has Leap Climb, so she doesn't need that. So now she can Flurry with 3 damage, 11 attack. Oh, because we're going to get those +2 stats. Actually, it's going to be Flurry with a 12 attack and 4 damage if she moves past. Okay. Now, no, she doesn't have any charge, but she does have Leap, Climb, and Stealth. Okay, she has a Calculator team ability, so she doesn't need to copy Batman TA. Okay. Next, she can copy, let's say, Ultimates. Or not Ultimates, Avengers Initiative off of your team. Okay. And then you get on, your Outwit clicks. Now you have Stealth. You have 1 click of a Stealth Blades, Combat Reflexes, and Outwit. Now you Outwit through Stealth. But wait, they have Power Cosmic. Free action, negate that. Oh, you negated my Power Cosmic? Outwit your defense now. You outwitted my defense? Yes, I did. Oh, and just to make sure that you don't get any funny ideas about getting Catwoman, she has +2 stats, so she is a 18 at range and a 19 in close combat because she does have combat reflexes. And on top of that, she has a 4 range. So if you do decide to get a little too frisky with the cat, she can give you the claws in the teeth. Okay, and she'll be doing the spade and neutering. All right, now let that sink in. Let that sink in. All right, now say to yourself, how many points is Catwoman? 68. How many points for that full Batman utility belt goodness? 14. How many points is that? 82. And what's sad is I brought up a calculator that tells you how little I do math outside of clicks. All right, for 82 points, you can get a 12 attack, 4 damage, 4 range, 10 movement, super senses, outwit, perplex, and other shenanigans. For 82 points. And the ability to neuter your opponent's gauntlet or utility belt while still maintaining yours, while at the same time being ridiculously powerful. And to boot, you can copy any team abilities you want. Oh yeah, that's not broken. And you can be carried. So Lockjaw and Hairball can just be like, hey, pet power. We likes the animals. We likes the animals. Okay, sort of going a little bit further. We do get to see one of the things attached, which is gas pellets, smoke grenades, resource. Now, note, this shouldn't work according to the rules. You shouldn't be able to pop this off and it be a resource. It shouldn't be a relic. I apologize. Resource. Give a character a power action to use Smoke Cloud until your next turn. As a free action, when the hindering terrain markers are removed, deal 1 penetrating damage to each opposing character occupying or adjacent to any of the removed hindering terrain markers. Now laugh. Okay, well, one reason to laugh is just imagine Larfeeze with this. This is going to be hilarious. He was already ridiculous with a gauntlet. Just give him like poison gas pellets. Just think about that. Okay, the next thing that is sort of hilarious. Actually, it really is hilarious because he poisoned gas pellets. That does 1 penetrating, and then he can do 1 more with his poison if they're fortunate. If you're fortunate enough. So yeah, that can be hilarious. Okay. Next, after that, you have it as a relic because it generates into the relic. Is character can use Smoke Cloud. When it does, after action resolves, it can be given a move action as a free action in a speed value of 4. So you get Flashbang. And it's 3 points. Now ask yourself, if it's 1 point on top of on top of the resource, why is it 3 points independent? Okay, and then also ask yourself, if you have a resource dial that generates a relic and that's legal, how can Lex Luthor not do it? That doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense at all. Next up, the big thing that I really want us to really sort of get into our minds is we can. I'm trying to phrase this properly. Okay, by pretty much saying, hey, here is when it's on the resource it does this, and when it's off the resource dial it does X or Y or Z or B squared. You're introducing a new mechanic because now you're saying, I don't need to use this on this piece, but I do need it on this other piece, and needing a 4 through 6 to pick it up is ridiculously easy, and the person that picks it up never drops it. Okay, they never drop it. Now, where things can get tricky is the following. You can lose all of your items. You can. Let's say you are ridiculously unlucky and you use all your effects and you don't land on like a resupply, or you don't land on anything to allow you to get your items back. You can't use any of his powers. Okay? Sorry, you can't use any of the Batman utility belt stuff. Now note. This is the sort of the double-edged sword. This is the back end of it. And you need to be mindful of this because since things can detach, if your opponents get too crunk with it and like, oh, I lost all this gear, now my team is super awesome, I still have all this other stuff. You have to realize, if they have 4 items on there, they only can use Indomitable. If they have 2 items on there, they can only use the powers on the dial. If they have no items on there, they can't use the powers on the dial. I'm letting that sink in for dramatic effect. And you might say, why is that? Because it says at cost, utility belt costs 7 points, plus 1 point if the custom slot is active, plus 1 point for each utility belt item slot that will be active this game. Other slots are inactive. At least one utility belt item slot must be active. If your opponent decides to go buck wild and make the objects rain, you know, like they're in a rap video or something, then they are paying 7 points for a dead weight. So that means that they can't turn it, they can't get benefits, they can't use the powers on it, they can't do anything until they resupply. But if they're not on resupply, then it's dead. This is the double-edged sword of the utility belt. While you have access to a frequent amount of +1 and +2, if you decide to use any of those things on the utility belt and you're not paying attention and you're not really trying to get the resupply going and paying attention to resupply, your figure can be powerless. That sort of hurts, doesn't it? Now, where do I see this really going in first level practicality? You know how we had like support gauntlet? Imagine if all of a sudden Donald Blake for 11 points now has Indomitable. Ooh, changes things, doesn't it? Imagine if, let's say a figure like Supergirl now has Indomitable. Changes things, doesn't it? You know, let's say all of a sudden, just for laughs, Full Power Enchantress has Indomitable. Oh, snap. Stuff got real, didn't it? Real quick. You know, let's say Black Adam at 100 points had Indomitable. I can go on. Now we're at a point where it's like Harvey Dent just got slapped in the face and said, "We don't need you anymore, Harvey. You know, you can go out to pasture." Because for really cheap, you can get that main guy that you need to like just power through stuff, Indomitable. Not only that, you have access to the Perplex and to the Outwit and to the other Orsur things that you normally wouldn't have. And when you get those powers, you have +2 stats to boot. So let's really put this to scale. You get, let's say you land on super senses. You have super senses plus combat reflexes and energy shield deflection for free. Ooh. That's that. Oh, you're just like, I didn't think of it like that. Yeah. You're getting close combat expert, and really you're getting close combat expert, range combat expert. You're also getting energy shield deflection, combat reflexes, and 2 shield guys giving you +1 to your attack and damage. Ooh, for 14 points. Ta-da! You can't see it, but I'm doing a little dance. Okay, so while having gas pellet smoke grenades on the resource dial is really great and it can be really awesome, the truth of the matter is you're never going to use it in most cases. They're going to sit there and they're going to be literally like extreme measures because you can't afford to lose that ability to get rid of team abilities. Now, let's go to Catwoman again. Catwoman at 86 points, just sitting there chilling, negating your opponent's, let's say, their gauntlet. Okay. And now they no longer have their +1 stat. They don't have any of that. But Catwoman has a +2. And she has no incentive to really move for most of the game until we get to end game. And once we get to end game, she has +2 stats. There's very few things that are going to hit her. If you play it right, yeah, Catwoman sits there and looks pretty. And the game hits to the end and it's like, oh, guess what? Catwoman gets her claws out, gets that whip a cracking, maybe pull out a 9mm because she has full range now, and say Kitty's come to play. And I love scratching things up. So these are some things for you to think about. Another thing for you to think about if you're really determined about running a couple of things from 10th anniversary. Imagine Dark Phoenix with the full utility belt at 100 or 200 points. You have a running shot, pulse wave, 12 attack, 12 range. Oh, actually, you would have your pulse wave range would be 7. And your damage would be 5. And you would have an attack of 12 if you landed on some of these clicks. On most of the time, you're going to get a +1. So looking at a +1, doing 4 damage, or if you're on her 200, I think you're like doing a 5 damage. And a 12 attack, or 11 attack on her 100. Changes things, doesn't it? Those 18s becoming 19s, and then you getting hindering, so it becomes a 20 from range. A whole different setup. So, how do we combat this? Pray that there's more outsiders. And in all honesty, pray that there's more outsiders, because outsiders is the only serious deterrent to playing resource dials. The next thing that you really need to hope that happens is there are more figures like Catwoman. More like Catwoman, less like Iron Man. And the last thing that we really want to happen is we want to see a transition into the meta where we can make a lot of these resource dials and relics a lot more risky. But we also need like a reshift in points for the relics. We shouldn't have to roll for relics anymore. If the Batman utility belt is 14 points and let's see, I think a Cosmic Cube. The Cosmic Cube is 12. And I'm going to confirm that for myself and for you, the listener. Yes, 12 points. Nova Helmet, 6 points. I mean, it stops making sense, WizKids. I have to roll a 5 or a 6 to pick this up, and it's 6 points, and you're giving me something that's 8 points, and I automatically get it? And it gives me magical plus stats? Come on, WizKids. Come on, WizKids. Really think about that. That's not balanced gameplay. That is very much imbalanced gameplay. So take your moments back, re-listen to the podcast. Think about, what you are going to do with a partial or full Batman utility belt. Ask yourself, where is the meta going with this? Where do you see like some old figures? It's like, oh yeah, that can be awesome. I know just automatically off the top of my head, the new Batman from 10th anniversary is just going to be ridiculous. A 14 attack possibly with in-cap and an 8 range. Yeah, that's just funny. So anyway, thank you for listening. I know this is a little bit sporadic and it's a lot shorter than normal. I definitely don't want to overload you all since I just put out an episode. And this one might be slightly delayed. Maybe not. I want you to hit me up at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any ideas for the show, if you want to just say, hey, thanks for listening. Please hit the subscribe button. I'm getting used to saying that. I really do appreciate it. It helps me sort of gauge, about how many people are floating around. And then also it helps me try to figure out if, what type of content is really draws people in and what pushes them away. Okay, that's pretty much it. I thank you for listening, and remember, we all have to start over sometime.